We are all one family, VNSNY nurses, yesterday and today. We've heard the story of how Visiting Nurse Service of New York began. Lillian Wall grew up in privileged circumstances in upstate New York, then moved to New York City to study nursing. During the Panic of 1893, which is still cited as one of the worst economic downturns in U.S. history, Lillian Wall taught a health class on Manhattan's Lower East Side. In that era, the neighborhood was deemed the world's most densely populated slum. One day, a child burst into Wall's class and begged her to rush to the bedside of a woman who'd just given birth. The patient lay bleeding on a mattress on the floor. Shocked by the poverty and ill health, Lillian Wall and a fellow nurse rented a fifth-floor walk-up on Jefferson Street. That's how our agency started, with 2 volunteers serving a huge, highly diverse community in great need of care. For the next 40 years, Lillian Wall played a role in nearly every social cause of her time, from child labor and immigration reform to women's suffrage and civil rights. We take pride in our legacy and how our agency has evolved from the late 1800s to the 21st century. Today we care for more than 30,000 patients a day across New York's 5 boroughs and beyond. A recent VNSNY marketing campaign asks the question, "Now what?" and answers it by providing the right care now. Not long ago, we stumbled upon an antique treasure trove, some precious film footage used as part of our marketing material of yesteryear. Some dates all the way back to the silent movie era of the 1920s and onward through the decades. Let's take a quick trip down memory lane and watch a few excerpts from our agency's home movies. These vignettes demonstrate how our mission has spanned the centuries, from 1893 until today. They showcase our diverse, multilingual staff and patients, in keeping with the Chinese expression, "We are all one family," Tongbao Shouju. Lillian Wall came across the Bao symbol during her trip to Asia in 1910 and adopted it as our first logo. This early film clip shows our nurses caring for New Yorkers, including new immigrants, amid the pushcarts and tenements of the Lower East Side, as well as encampments in Queens, Staten Island, and Gun Hill in the Bronx, then a rural environment where nurses drew water from wells. In the 1920s, our Chinese-speaking nurse, Xingling Tsai, made her rounds in Chinatown. Nearly a century later, the neighborhood has grown into the largest Chinese community in the Western Hemisphere. In 2006, we launched New York State's largest neighborhood NORC, or Naturally Occurring Retirement Community, in Chinatown. Led by the director of our Asian program, our nurses and social workers provide culturally sensitive care to the elderly there. Here we see footage from the Great Depression of the 1930s, with African American nurses visiting patients in Harlem, as well as on a barge on the Hudson River. This film was shot decades after our agency had already played a key role in civil rights history. In 1909, when New York City law prohibited integrated meetings, Lillian Wald stepped in with an offer to host the 1909 National Negro Conference at VNSNY headquarters. That historic meeting led to the creation of the NAACP, or National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. One early example of VNSNY talkies dates back to 1933, when our agency celebrated its 40th anniversary. Former New York Governor Al Smith, a member of our board of directors, appears here with Lillian Wald, who retired later that same year. During World War II, a newsreel-like appeal for contributions entitled "Keep 'em Fighting" describes how one of our nurses traveled to London to visit bomb shelters so that New Yorkers could better prepare civil defense here at home.
I am a Henry Street nurse. I have just returned from special service with the American Red Cross in England, working among crowded bomb shelters, fighting wartime disease there, learning how to prevent it here. Today in Manhattan, Bronx, and Queens, we face the greatest emergency of our time. More people are calling for us. More will be calling than ever before.
In 1973, while New York City dealt with its last great fiscal crisis, the late celebrity Kitty Carlisle Hart narrated our film clip entitled "In Time of Need."
New York. There's no other city like it in the world. It's a city of contrasts and endless variety, embracing all races, all cultures, all creeds, on the streets and in the canyons of 1,000 different neighborhoods. A city of sound and movement, New York is an incredible mix of people, of promise and problems.
Home to a New Yorker can be an apartment in the South Bronx, a pad in the Village, a brownstone, Gramercy Park, a row house in Queens, or a single room in an old West Side hotel. The visiting nurse is familiar with every section of the city. It is here that you'll find her helping people cope with illness and the problems of daily life, teaching people how to live with their handicaps in order to survive, reaching out into every neighborhood. Nursing, counseling, helping the new mother, the poor, the disabled, the elderly, the drug addicted. The Visiting Nurse Service is the largest nonprofit public health nursing agency in America.
Which brings us to today, the latest installment in a long, proud history of providing New Yorkers with the right care now. We salute all our colleagues and every member of the VNSNY family.